The autumn wind swept across the courtyard of Riverside Academy, carrying with it the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant laughter of students enjoying their lunch break. For most, it was just another Thursday. For Maya Richardson, it was the day everything changed. She sat alone on the stone bench near the east wing, her biology textbook open but unread. Her fingers traced the worn edges of a photograph tucked inside the front cover. Her grandmother, Dr. Eleanor Richardson, in her graduation robes from Howard University, 1963. The same grandmother who had integrated Riverside Academy 40 years ago, facing threats and hatred with quiet dignity. The same grandmother whose name was now engraved on a plaque in the main hall, honoring her contributions to science and education. Maya had grown up hearing stories about Eleanor's courage, her brilliance, her refusal to be diminished. But sitting here now, a junior at the same institution her grandmother had fought to attend, Maya felt small. The weight of that legacy pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. Still eating alone, I see. The voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Maya looked up to find Brittany Walsh standing over her, flanked by her usual companions, Connor Hayes and Madison Park. Brittany was everything Maya was not. Blonde, effortlessly popular, the daughter of the Academy's largest donor. Her smile was bright and cruel in equal measure. "Just studying," Maya replied quietly, closing her book. "Right. Studying." Brittany exchanged a knowing look with Madison. "That's what you people call it when you can't handle the social scene, isn't it?" The casual racism in her tone was almost worse than if she'd been overt about it. It was the kind of comment designed to wound while maintaining plausible deniability. Maya's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She had learned early that responding only fed the beast. Brittany thrived on reaction, on the power of making others squirm. Connor leaned against the bench, his leather jacket catching the sunlight. He was the quarterback, blessed with the kind of easy charm that made teachers overlook his casual cruelty. "You know, my dad was telling me about your grandmother. Said she caused quite a stir back in the day. Made a lot of people uncomfortable. She integrated this school," Maya said, her voice steady despite the anger building in her chest. "She made history." "She made trouble," Brittany corrected, her smile never wavering. "There's a difference." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But I guess troublemaking runs in the family, doesn't it? I heard you filed a complaint with Dean Morrison about the chemistry lab assignments." Maya had indeed spoken to the dean, but not to cause trouble. She had noticed a pattern: students of color consistently receiving lower scores on lab reports despite identical work quality. She had gathered evidence, presented it professionally, and requested an inquiry. It was the kind of thing her grandmother would have done. "I raised a concern about grading practices," Maya said carefully. "That's not troublemaking. That's accountability." Madison laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Accountability. That's rich. You know what we call people who can't succeed on their own merit and have to cry discrimination? Victims. And this school is sick of victims playing the race card." The accusation stung because Maya had anticipated it. She had known that speaking up would paint a target on her back. But she had done it anyway, believing that silence was complicity. Now, standing in the crosshairs of their contempt, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. "I'm not playing any card," Maya said, gathering her books. "I'm asking for fairness." "Fairness," Brittany repeated, as if tasting the word. "You want to talk about fairness? Let's talk about how you got into this school, Maya. Let's talk about diversity quotas and lowered standards. Let's talk about how your grandmother's legacy got you a free ride while the rest of us had to actually earn our spots." The lie was so brazen it took Maya's breath away. She had scored in the 99th percentile on her entrance exams. She had a 4.2 GPA. She had earned every single thing she had achieved. But Brittany was not interested in truth. She was interested in control, in maintaining the narrative that Maya was less than, that she did not belong. "I earned my place here," Maya said quietly, "just like my grandmother did." "Keep telling yourself that," Connor said, pushing off the bench. "But we all know the truth. This school lowered its standards to make room for you. And now you're trying to drag everyone else down to your level with your complaints and your accusations." They walked away, their laughter echoing across the courtyard. Maya stood there, her books clutched to her chest, watching them go. She felt the familiar burn of tears, but refused to let them fall. Not here, not where anyone could see. She thought about her grandmother, about the photographs she had seen, of Eleanor walking through hostile crowds, her head held high, her face a mask of calm determination. How had she done it? How had she endured years of this and emerged unbroken? Maya did not know. But as she walked toward the library, she made herself a promise. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She would not prove their ugly assumptions right by giving up or lashing out. She would endure, just as her grandmother had endured. What she did not know, could not have known, was that Brittany, Connor, and Madison had only just begun their campaign. And the price of her grandmother's legacy was about to become far steeper than Maya had ever imagined. The next morning, Maya arrived at her locker to find it defaced. Someone had scrawled, "Quote a queen," across the metal door in permanent marker. The words were large, impossible to miss, designed to humiliate her in front of the entire student body. Her hand shook as she tried to scrub it off with hand sanitizer and paper towels, but the marker had soaked into the paint. Students passed by, some staring openly, others averting their eyes in embarrassment, not for the vandals, but for her, as if being targeted made her complicit in her own humiliation. "Need help?" The voice was gentle, unexpected. Maya turned to find Jamie Chun standing beside her, holding a bottle of rubbing alcohol and a clean cloth. Jamie was quiet, studious, the kind of student who flew under the radar by design. They had shared honors biology last year, but had never been close. "I've got it," Maya said automatically, not wanting to drag anyone else into her mess. "I know what permanent marker looks like," Jamie said, already dampening the cloth. "This won't come off with hand sanitizer. You need alcohol." Janie began scrubbing, their movements efficient and deliberate. "I saw who did it. This morning, before first period. Brittany and Madison. They were laughing about it." Maya's stomach dropped. She had suspected, of course, but having confirmation made it real in a way that speculation had not. Did anyone else see? Probably, but nobody's going to say anything. Jamie's tone was matter-of-fact, neither bitter nor surprised. "That's how it works here. The Walshes donate millions. Brittany could burn down the science building, and they'd blame it on faulty wiring. So I just let it go?" Maya asked, hating how defeated she sounded. "I didn't say that." Jamie finished scrubbing and stepped back. The words were faded but still visible, ghost letters that everyone would recognize. "I said nobody's going to say anything publicly. But that doesn't mean there aren't people paying attention." Before Maya could ask what that meant, the warning bell rang. Students began flooding the hallways, and Jamie disappeared into the crowd without another word. Maya stood there, staring at her locker, feeling more alone than ever. In chemistry class, the isolation intensified. Brittany sat 3 rows back, whispering to Madison, their eyes fixed on Maya. Every time Maya raised her hand to answer a question, Brittany would cough loudly, a sound that meant nothing and everything. When Mr. Patterson praised Maya's lab technique, Connor muttered something about teacher's pet, just loud enough for half the class to hear. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Each one small enough to dismiss individually, but collectively devastating. Maya felt herself withdrawing, her hand rising less frequently, her voice growing quieter. She was being erased, and she did not know how to stop it. At lunch, she found her usual table occupied. Brittany and her group had claimed it, spreading their belongings across every seat. When Maya approached, Brittany looked up with feigned surprise. "Oh, sorry, Maya. We didn't realize this was your table. I mean, there aren't assigned seats or anything, are there?" The question was rhetorical, dripping with false innocence. "We just thought, since you're always talking about fairness and equality, you wouldn't mind sharing. Unless you think you're entitled to special treatment." The cafeteria had gone quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what Maya would do. If she argued, she would be the aggressor. If she walked away, she would be conceding territory, admitting weakness. There was no good option. "It's fine," Maya said, her voice steady. "I'll find somewhere else." She ended up in the library, eating her sandwich alone in the study carrel. The librarian, Miss Foster, gave her a sympathetic look but said nothing. Maya appreciated the silence. She was tired of people's pity, tired of being the object of everyone's carefully calibrated responses. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw what happened at lunch." "You okay?" Maya stared at the message. She did not recognize the number, did not know who would reach out anonymously. But something about the gesture, small as it was, made her throat tight with emotion. "I'm fine," she typed back. Then, after a moment, "Thank you for asking." The response was immediate. "You're stronger than they are. Don't forget that." Maya wanted to believe it. But strength felt like a finite resource, and she was running low. The day dragged on, each class a minefield of subtle hostilities. By the time the final bell rang, she was exhausted. She stayed late in the library, ostensibly to study, but really to avoid going home, where she would have to pretend everything was fine. Her mother had enough to worry about double shifts at the hospital, bills that never seemed to stop coming. Maya did not want to add to her burdens. As she packed up her things, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was not a text. It was a photo, forwarded from multiple numbers simultaneously. Maya's hands went cold as she opened it. It was a meme, crudely made but effective. Her school photo had been photoshopped onto the body of a monkey, with the caption, "Affirmative action in action." Below it, someone had added, "When you need diversity but brains aren't included." The image had been sent to what looked like the entire junior class. Maya's vision blurred. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud and irregular. This was not just bullying. This was racial harassment, blatant and cruel. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Then she stopped. Deleting it would not make it go away. It was already out there, already spreading. Instead, she took a screenshot. Then another. She documented everything. The original message, the forwarding chain, the phone numbers attached. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Evidence is power. Document everything. Stay calm. Stay smart. Maya took a breath, centering herself. Then she composed an email to Dean Morrison, attaching the screenshots. She wrote professionally, clinically, describing the harassment without emotion. She cited the school's anti-discrimination policy and requested an immediate investigation. As she hit send, she felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, the hurt still raw. But underneath it, something harder was forming. Not anger, exactly. Determination. She was her grandmother's granddaughter. She would not be broken by this. She would not be erased. But as she walked out of the library into the fading afternoon light, she had no idea that the real battle was only just beginning. The summons came during third period the next day. Maya was in the middle of a calculus exam when a student aide appeared at the door, handing Mr. Chun a note. The teacher read it, his expression carefully neutral, and called Maya to the front of the room. "Dean Morrison needs to see you," he said quietly. "Take your things." The walk to the administrative building felt like a death march. Every student she passed seemed to know where she was going and why. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked away. By the time she reached the dean's office, Maya's stomach was in knots. Dean Morrison was a woman in her 50s, elegant and unreadable. She had been at Riverside Academy for 20 years, navigating the delicate politics of wealthy families and institutional legacy with practiced skill. She gestured for Maya to sit, her expression grave. "Thank you for coming, Maya. I received your email last night, and I want you to know we take these allegations very seriously." Maya felt a flicker of hope. "Thank you. I know this puts the school in a difficult position, but which is why," Morrison interrupted gently, "I need you to understand the situation we're facing. The image you sent was disturbing, absolutely. But after investigating the source, we've encountered some complications." The hope died. Maya knew what was coming before Morrison said it. The original image was posted from an anonymous account on a platform outside our jurisdiction. While it was forwarded by several Riverside students, we have no way to prove who created it. Additionally, some students are claiming they received and forwarded it without actually viewing the content, that it was part of a group message chain they didn't monitor closely. "That's not true," Maya said, her voice tight. "I saw the forwarding chain. People added comments. They engaged with it deliberately." "I understand your frustration," Morrison said, her tone maddeningly sympathetic. "But without concrete proof of who created the image and who knowingly forwarded it with malicious intent, our hands are somewhat tied. We can't punish students based on suspicion alone, so they get away with it." "It was not a question," Morrison sighed. "What I can do is make an announcement reminding students about our anti-harassment policies. I can also increase monitoring of social media channels and work with our IT department to track future incidents more effectively. But Maya, I need you to be realistic. The Walsh family has been very clear about their concerns regarding what they call selective enforcement of school policies." There it was, the real reason for Morrison's carefully worded evasions. The Walsh family had pushed back, threatened to withdraw their donations, and the school had folded. "My grandmother integrated this school," Maya said quietly. "She faced death threats. She had to have police escorts. And she never backed down because she believed Riverside Academy could be better. She believed in its values." Morrison's face softened with what looked like genuine regret. "And we honor her legacy every day. But Maya, you have to understand the reality of running an institution like this. We survive on donor support. Without families like the Walshes, we couldn't offer the programs and resources that make Riverside exceptional. So some students are more equal than others." Maya stood, gathering her bag. "That's what you're telling me. As long as their parents write big enough checks, they can do whatever they want." "That's not what I'm saying." "Yes, it is." Maya's voice remained calm, but her hands were shaking. "You're telling me that my complaint doesn't matter because I'm not worth protecting. That my grandmother's legacy is just a plaque on a wall, good for tours and brochures, but meaningless when it actually counts." Morrison stood as well, her composure cracking slightly. "Maya, please. I know this feels like a betrayal, but I'm trying to protect you. If we pursue this aggressively and the evidence isn't sufficient, it could make things worse. Brittany and her friends could retaliate. They could make your life here unbearable." "It's already unbearable," Maya said. "The difference is whether I'm going to suffer in silence or stand up for what's right. My grandmother didn't choose silence. Neither will I." She walked out before Morrison could respond, her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and fear. The dean was right about one thing: this was going to get worse. Brittany would see the failed complaint as permission to escalate. Maya had made herself a bigger target than ever, but as she walked through the halls, she felt her phone buzz. Another text from the anonymous number. "Morrison's office has glass walls. I saw everything. You're not alone." Meet me after school. West stairwell, third floor. Come alone. Maya stared at the message, suspicion warring with curiosity. It could be a trap, another way to humiliate her. But something in her gut told her to trust it. Whoever this person was, they had been watching. They had seen what Maya was facing. She texted back, "Who are you?" The response was immediate. Someone who's tired of watching them win. 3 p.m. Don't be late. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya went through the motions of her classes, barely hearing the lessons, her mind fixated on the mysterious message. When the final bell rang, she made her way to the west stairwell, a rarely used section of the building that connected the old wing to the new. Jamie Chun was waiting for her. "We're prepared to file unless certain conditions are met immediately." Morrison's face went pale. "This is highly irregular. We've been working with Maya to address her concerns. You dismissed her complaint and allowed the harassment to escalate." Chun interrupted. "You failed to investigate credible allegations of racial discrimination. You allowed a student to be targeted with racist imagery and threats. And when she attempted to seek help, you prioritized donor relations over student safety. That's not addressing concerns. That's institutional complicity." The NAACP representative, a woman named Dr. Sharon Williams, added, "We're also prepared to contact the media. I believe the Washington Post would be very interested in the story about a prestigious academy named after the very civil rights icon whose granddaughter is being racially harassed within its walls. The optics, as I'm sure you can imagine, are not favorable." Morrison looked like she might be sick. "What do you want?" "Immediate suspension of students involved in creating and distributing the racist meme," Chun said, counting on his fingers. "A comprehensive third-party investigation into the school's handling of harassment complaints. Mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff and students. And a written apology to Maya Richardson, acknowledging the school's failure to protect her. I don't have the authority to suspend students without due process. Then get someone who does," Maya's mother said, her voice like steel. "Or we file the complaint today and call the press conference tomorrow. Your choice." The room fell silent. Morrison stared at the legal documents, at the resolute faces across from her, and understood that this was no longer something she could manage with carefully worded emails and closed-door meetings. "I'll need to consult with the board," she said finally. "You have until end of business today," Chun replied. "After that, we proceed with formal action." As they left Morrison's office, Maya felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. This was really happening. The fight was no longer whispered in stairwells or documented in secret. It was out in the open, backed by lawyers and civil rights organizations. But she also knew that Brittany Walsh was not going to surrender quietly. And the final confrontation was still to come. The board's response came faster than anyone expected. By 4 p.m., Principal Davidson issued a school-wide statement, effective immediately. 3 students, Brittany Walsh, Connor Hayes, and Madison Park, were being placed on indefinite suspension pending investigation into allegations of harassment and discriminatory conduct. A third-party firm would be conducting interviews beginning the following week. The announcement detonated like a bomb. The suspension of 3 of the school's most prominent students, all from powerful families, was unprecedented. Within hours, parent phone trees were lighting up. Angry emails flooded the administrative offices. The Walsh family's lawyer issued a statement calling the suspension punitive and premature. But the dam had broken. With Brittany suspended, other students began coming forward. First 1, then 3, then a dozen students who had been targeted, humiliated, or intimidated over the years. The anonymous evidence Jamie had submitted was suddenly corroborated by witness after witness. The investigators arrived on Monday. a team of 3 education consultants hired specifically for their experience with civil rights cases. They interviewed students, teachers, administrators. They reviewed social media records, text message chains, emails. They examined the school's harassment reporting procedures and found them woefully inadequate. Maya gave her testimony on Wednesday, a 3-hour session where she walked the investigators through everything: the locker vandalism, the meme, the stolen journal, the manufactured evidence against Jamie. Her mother and attorney Chun sat beside her as she spoke, her voice steady despite the tears that occasionally fell. Jamie testified too. Once the plagiarism charges against them were dropped, the investigators found the allegations baseless within 20 minutes of examination. Together, their testimonies painted a picture of systematic abuse enabled by institutional indifference. But the most devastating testimony came from an unexpected source: Mr. Patterson, the chemistry teacher. He had been at Riverside for 15 years, long enough to see patterns. He testified that he had reported concerns about Brittany's behavior multiple times over the years, only to have those reports disappear into administrative files. He described pressure from parents, threats to his job, colleagues who turned a blind eye because it was easier than fighting. "I'm ashamed," he told the investigators, his voice breaking. "I knew what was happening. I saw it, and I didn't do enough to stop it because I was afraid." But watching what they did to Maya Richardson, watching them try to destroy a child whose grandmother literally desegregated this school, I can't stay silent anymore. If I lose my job, so be it. But someone has to tell the truth. His testimony was corroborated by 2 other teachers and a guidance counselor, all of whom had witnessed or been complicit in the systematic dismissal of harassment complaints. The preliminary report landed on the Board of Trustees' desks 2 weeks later. It was devastating. The investigators found substantial evidence of a hostile racial environment, systemic failures in harassment prevention and response, and institutional prioritization of donor relations over student welfare. They recommended immediate policy changes, mandatory training, and consideration of expulsion for the students involved. The board met in emergency session. For 12 hours, they debated. The Walsh family brought lawyers, threatened lawsuits, promised to withdraw their endowment. Other families rallied to their defense, arguing that the school was overreacting to youthful indiscretion. But other voices pushed back. Alumni who remembered Dr. Eleanor Richardson's courage. Parents of color who had watched their own children endure similar treatment. Students who were tired of living in fear of Brittany's cruelty. And a group of teachers, led by Mr. Patterson, who presented a letter signed by 47 faculty members supporting the investigators' findings. In the end, the vote was split but decisive. Brittany Walsh, Connor Hayes, and Madison Park were expelled from Riverside Academy, effective immediately. The announcement sent shockwaves through the community. The Walsh family pulled their endowment and threatened legal action. Several other donors followed suit. The school's budget was suddenly in crisis, but something else happened too. Other donors stepped forward, alumni who had been silent, families who had stayed away because they did not feel welcome, organizations dedicated to educational equity. They pledged support, not to the institution that had been, but to the institution that could become. Dr. Williams from the NAACP stood on the steps of Riverside Academy at a press conference. Maya beside her. "This is not about vengeance," Williams said to the assembled reporters. "This is about accountability. For too long, institutions like this one have claimed to value diversity while protecting those who terrorize diverse students. Today, Riverside Academy made a choice to actually live its values. It's a painful choice, but it's the right one." Maya stepped to the microphone, her voice steady. "My grandmother integrated this school 60 years ago because she believed education was worth fighting for. She believed that institutions could change, could grow, could become better than their worst impulses. I'm standing here today because I still believe that. But I also believe that change doesn't happen by asking nicely. It happens when people stand up, speak out, and refuse to accept cruelty as normal. I'm grateful to everyone who found the courage to do that. And I'm especially grateful to my grandmother, who taught me that our legacy is not what we inherit, it's what we build. The cameras flashed. The reporters shouted questions. But Maya was not looking at them. She was looking at the plaque bearing her grandmother's name, catching the afternoon light. Later that evening, Maya visited her grandmother's grave. She had not been since the harassment began, too ashamed to face the woman whose legacy she felt she was failing to uphold. "I did it, Grandma," she whispered, kneeling beside the headstone. "I didn't do it your way. I had help, lawyers, the press. I wasn't as brave as you, but I didn't back down. I hope that's enough." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of jasmine her grandmother had loved. Maya stayed until the sun set, feeling for the first time in months like the weight on her shoulders had eased. But she knew the story was not over. Riverside still had work to do. She had another year and a half before graduation, and the wounds left by months of harassment would not heal overnight. But she had proven something to herself. She was Eleanor Richardson's granddaughter, and that legacy was worth fighting for. The months following the expulsions were not easy. Brittany, Connor, and Madison enrolled in private schools across the state, their families loudly proclaiming they were the true victims of political correctness and reverse discrimination. Their lawyers filed appeals that went nowhere. Their social media campaigns gained traction in certain corners of the internet, but largely failed to sway public opinion. "You," Maya said, surprise evident in her voice. Jamie nodded. "Me. Sorry for the cloak and dagger routine, but I couldn't risk anyone seeing us together. Brittany's already suspicious of anyone who talks to you." They gestured for Maya to follow them up the stairs to a small landing with a window overlooking the athletic fields. "Why are you helping me?" Maya asked. "Because I've been where you are," Jamie said simply. "Last year, before you transferred in, Brittany decided I was too nerdy and started a campaign to get me uninvited from things. She spread rumors that I cheated on exams, that I was only here because my parents bribed someone. It was brutal. I almost left. What happened? My parents fought back. They hired a lawyer, threatened to sue. The school backed down. Brittany moved on to easier targets, and I learned to be invisible." Jamie's expression was haunted. "I told myself I was being smart, surviving. But watching what they're doing to you, I realized I was just being a coward. Your grandmother didn't stay quiet. Neither should we." Maya felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she was not alone. "What do you have in mind?" she asked. Jamie pulled out a laptop. "I've been collecting evidence. Screenshots, recordings, testimony from other students who've been targeted, but were too afraid to speak up. Brittany has been doing this for years, to dozens of people. The school ignores it because of her family's money. But if we can build a case that's too big to ignore, too documented to dismiss, they'll have to act." "Morrison already dismissed my complaint," Maya said. "Why would a bigger case matter?" "Because you went to the dean. I'm thinking we go higher. The board of trustees. The press. Make this a public relations nightmare they can't sweep under the rug." Jamie's eyes glinted with determination. "Your grandmother's story brought national attention to Riverside. We use that. We show them that the same school that claims to honor her legacy is allowing her granddaughter to be racially harassed. It was bold, risky, potentially devastating if it backfired. But Maya thought about the meme, about Brittany's smug confidence, about Dean Morrison's carefully worded capitulation to power and money. "Okay," Maya said. "Let's do it." Jamie smiled, real and warm. "Good. because we're going to need your help. You know more about your grandmother's history than anyone." We framed this as a continuation of her fight. Unfinished business. The battle she started that we're finishing. For the first time since the locker defacement, Maya felt something other than fear and exhaustion. She felt purpose. She felt her grandmother's strength flowing through her, a legacy not of victimhood but of resistance. They spent the next hour planning, strategizing, gathering evidence. Jamie had been thorough texts, emails, witness statements from students Brittany had targeted over the years. Together, they began building a timeline, a pattern of behavior that showed systematic harassment enabled by institutional indifference. As Maya left the school that evening, her backpack heavy with documents and her heart heavy with the weight of what they were about to do, she passed the plaque honoring her grandmother, Dr. Eleanor Richardson. It read, "Pioneer and Pathbreaker. May her courage inspire future generations." "I'm trying, Grandma," Maya whispered. "I'm really trying." She did not know that in the parking lot, Connor Hayes was watching her, his phone pressed to his ear, already calling Brittany with news of Maya's suspicious after-school meeting. The machine was already in motion, and it was about to crush anyone in its path. The escalation was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, the entire school knew that Mayo was planning something. The rumor mill, fed by Connor's surveillance and Brittany's strategic whispers, spun wild theories. Maya was going to sue the school. Maya was planning a protest. Maya was writing an expose for a national newspaper. None of it was true yet. But Brittany treated it as a declaration of war. The first casualty was Jamie. During morning announcements, Principal Davidson called Jamie to the office over the intercom. Maya watched from across the cafeteria as Jamie walked past, their face pale but determined. They did not return to class by lunch. The story had spread. Jamie's parents had been called in for an emergency conference about Jamie's grades and conduct. Apparently, several teachers had reported concerns about Jamie's recent behavior distraction in class. Incomplete assignments, possible academic dishonesty. It was all fabricated. A coordinated assault designed to discredit Jamie before they could serve as a credible witness. Maya knew it. Jamie knew it. But proving it was another matter entirely. Maya found Jamie that afternoon in the library, their eyes red-rimmed but furious. "They're threatening to suspend me," Jamie said quietly, claiming I'd plagiarized a history paper from last month. They dug up old work, had 3 teachers sign statements saying they had concerns about my integrity. My parents are terrified. They don't want to fight the school. They just want me to graduate and get out. "We can prove you didn't plagiarize, can we?" Jamie's laugh was bitter. "My parents can't afford a lawyer. They can't risk me losing my scholarship." Brittany knew exactly which pressure points to hit. "She's forcing me to choose between fighting back and my future." Maya felt sick. This was her fault. She had pulled Jamie into this, and now Jamie was paying the price. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never should have involved you. Don't." Jamie's voice was sharp. "Don't you dare apologize for standing up. This isn't your fault. It's theirs. And it proves exactly what we're fighting against. This system that protects bullies and punishes anyone who challenges them. So what do we do?" Jamie was quiet for a long moment. Then they pulled out their phone and showed Maya a message. "I already did it. I sent everything to the Board of Trustees, anonymously. Every screenshot, every statement, every piece of evidence we collected. I dropped it in their digital mailbox this morning before the meeting with my parents." Maya's heart stopped. "Jamie, if they trace it back to you, they can't. I used a burner email, routed it through a VPN. I learned from the best," Jamie said with a weak smile. "If I'm going down anyway, I'm taking the shot. Now we wait and see if anyone has the courage to do something with it." They did not have to wait long. By Wednesday, the school was buzzing with new rumors. An emergency board meeting had been called. Parents were receiving notifications about a comprehensive review of school culture and climate. Something was happening. Something big enough that even the Walsh family could not suppress it entirely. Brittany sensed the shift. And like any cornered predator, she became more dangerous. Maya was leaving chemistry when she found her bag had been rifled through. Her notebook was missing, the one containing her personal journal entries about the harassment. Also gone, the printed photos of her grandmother that she kept for inspiration. Small things, but their absence felt like a violation. That night, a new anonymous social media account appeared, Riverside Truths. It posted a series of messages, each one supposedly from Maya's stolen journal, but altered, twisted. The post painted Maya as paranoid, obsessed with race, playing the victim for attention. They made her look unstable, manipulative. The account gained 300 followers in an hour. Maya sat in her bedroom, staring at the posts, watching her words, her private thoughts weaponized against her. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "Baby, I got a call from the school. Dean Morrison wants to meet with both of us tomorrow morning." She said it's urgent. Her mother's face was creased with worry. What's going on? Maya had tried so hard to shield her mother from this, to handle it herself. But the dam finally broke. She told her everything: the harassment, the meme, the stolen journal, the manufactured evidence against Jamie. She showed her mother the social media posts, the defaced locker photos she had saved, the timeline of abuse. Her mother listened in silence, her expression moving from shock to fury to something harder, colder. "Your grandmother," her mother said finally, her voice shaking, "survived fire hoses and police dogs. She survived people spitting on her and calling her every name imaginable. And you know what she told me when I was your age and facing my own bullies?" Maya shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She said, "They want you to fight back in anger so they can call you violent. They want you to stay quiet so they can call you weak. The only way to win is to be smarter, calmer, and more strategic than they ever expected. We're going to that meeting tomorrow, baby. And we're bringing a lawyer." Her mother made 3 phone calls that night. The first was to an old friend from law school. The second was to a journalist who had covered her mother's own civil rights work 20 years ago. The third was to the NAACP regional office. By morning, Maya Richardson was no longer fighting alone. The meeting with Dean Morrison was nothing like the dean had planned. Instead of a frightened teenager and an easily intimidated parent, she faced Maya, her mother, attorney David Chun, no relation to Jamie, and a representative from the NAACP's Education Justice Project. Morrison's carefully prepared speech about mutual understanding and moving forward constructively died on her lips when Attorney Chun placed a legal document on her desk. "This is a notice of intent to file a civil rights complaint with the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights," Chun said calmly. "My client has documented a pattern of racial harassment that this institution has failed to address." Riverside Academy, meanwhile, underwent painful transformation. The third-party investigation had exposed not just individual bad actors, but systemic problems. The new school president, Dr. Michaela Torres, was a no-nonsense educator with a background in restorative justice. She instituted sweeping reforms: anonymous reporting systems, mandatory bias training, a complete overhaul of the disciplinary process, and most significantly, a diversity coordinator position dedicated solely to creating an inclusive environment. The position was offered to Jamie Chun's mother, a sociology professor who had quietly advocated for change for years. She accepted. Maya and Jamie became unlikely leaders in the student-led Equity Council that formed in the wake of the expulsions. What started as 5 students meeting during lunch grew to 20, then 40. They organized workshops, invited speakers, created mentorship programs pairing older students with freshmen who felt isolated or targeted. It was exhausting work. Some students resented them, calling them social justice warriors or troublemakers. Anonymous social media accounts still occasionally posted attacks. But the difference was that now, when harassment happened, the school responded swiftly, seriously, consistently. Mr. Patterson, the chemistry teacher who had testified, was promoted to assistant principal with a specific mandate to oversee student welfare. His first act was to personally apologize to Maya for the years he had remained silent. "I can't undo the past," he told her, "but I can make sure the future is different." Maya's relationship with her mother deepened too. The ordeal had forced conversations they had both avoided about race, about legacy, about the weight of expectations. Maya learned that her mother had faced her own battles at Riverside years ago, battles she had mostly fought alone. Breaking that silence, sharing those stories, made them both stronger. As spring approached, the scholarship committee announced the recipients of the Eleanor Richardson Memorial Scholarship, a newly created award funded by alumni who wanted to honor Dr. Richardson's actual legacy, not the sanitized version the school had preferred. Maya was called to the office to meet the recipients, 3 incoming freshmen, all students of color from underrepresented backgrounds, all brilliant and brave in their own ways. One was a girl who had founded a coding camp for girls in underserved communities. Another was a student activist who had organized protests against environmental racism in their hometown. The third was a young poet whose work explored identity and belonging. "These are your people," Dr. Torres told Maya, gesturing to the 3 nervous teenagers. "They're coming here because you fought to make it safe for them. Your grandmother opened the door. You kept it from slamming shut." Maya spent an hour with them, answering questions, sharing stories, offering advice. When they asked if Riverside was worth it, if the fight was worth it, she thought carefully before answering. "It's hard," she said honestly. "Harder than it should be. You'll face people who don't want you here, who will test you in ways that feel impossible. But you'll also find allies in unexpected places. You'll discover strength you didn't know you had. And you'll be part of something bigger than yourself, a legacy of people who refuse to accept that brilliance has a color or a background. So yes, it's worth it, if you're willing to fight." The 3 students nodded, their eyes bright with determination that reminded Maya of herself a year ago. She wondered what battles they would face, what changes they would force, what legacy they would build. Graduation approached. Maya's academic record had not just survived the year of trauma, it had strengthened. Her GPA remained perfect. Her college applications were complete, with essays that told the truth about her experience. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they all accepted her. But her choice surprised everyone. She chose Howard University, her grandmother's alma mater. "I need to understand where she came from," Maya explained to her mother. "I need to build my own legacy in the place where hers began." Riverside was her battlefield. It became mine too. But I want to choose my next fight, not inherit it. Her mother cried. But they were tears of pride. On graduation day, Maya stood in the same auditorium where she had once sat, watching Brittany claim unearned spaces. But the atmosphere was different now. Dr. Torres gave a speech about courage and accountability. Mr. Patterson read a letter from an anonymous alumna thanking the students who had forced the school to change. When Maya's name was called not just as a graduate but as valedictorian, the applause was thunderous. She walked to the podium, her grandmother's photograph tucked in her robe pocket, and looked out at the sea of faces. "A year ago," she began, "I wasn't sure I would be standing here. I wasn't sure I wanted to be. This place which was supposed to be a sanctuary of learning, became a battlefield. I was told to stay quiet, to accept abuse, to be grateful for opportunities that I had earned but was told were gifts. I was told that speaking up would make things worse, that no one would believe me, that powerful people would always win. She paused, letting her eyes scan the crowd. They were wrong, not because I'm special or because I'm braver than anyone else, but because I had something they couldn't take away: legacy. My grandmother, Dr. Eleanor Richardson, taught me that our worth is not determined by other people's hatred, that institutions can change, but only when we demand it. That silence in the face of injustice is not peace, it's complicity. Maya pulled out her grandmother's photograph, holding it up for the audience to see. She couldn't be here today, but her courage is. It's in every policy this school has changed. It's in every student who now feels safe to report harassment. It's in every teacher who found the strength to speak truth to power. It's in the 3 new scholarship recipients sitting in the front row, knowing they belong here not because of anyone's charity, but because of their merit. She carefully returned the photo to her pocket. To my fellow graduates, we inherit the world we're given, but we don't have to accept it as it is. We can build better. We can fight harder. We can be the change we wish we had seen. That's the real legacy, not the institutions we attend or the plaques that bear our names, but the courage we show when it would be easier to stay silent. Maya looked directly at Jamie, sitting 3 rows back, tears streaming down their face. And we don't do it alone. We do it together. We lift each other up. We witness each other's pain. We share each other's victories. Because that's how change actually happens, not through individual heroes, but through communities of people who refuse to accept cruelty as normal. She took a breath, feeling her grandmother's presence like a hand on her shoulder. Thank you to everyone who stood with me. Thank you to everyone who found their courage when I needed it most. And thank you to this institution for proving that even places built on old legacies can write new stories. The question is whether we have the courage to keep writing them. The standing ovation was immediate, overwhelming. Maya saw her mother, Mr. Patterson, Dr. Torres, Jamie, and dozens of others on their feet, applauding not just her words but what they represented: a year of pain transformed into purpose. As she left the stage, diploma in hand, Maya passed the plaque honoring her grandmother. She touched it gently, a private moment of communion. "We're okay, Grandma," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." Outside, as graduates threw their caps and families embraced, Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers. But the person she sought out was Jamie, standing quietly at the edge of the celebration. "We did it," Jamie said simply. "No," Maya corrected, pulling them into a hug. "You did it first. You took the first risk. You gave me the courage to keep fighting. I couldn't have done any of this without you." They stood together. 2 students who had been bullied, isolated, and nearly broken, watching the institution that had failed them begin the long, hard work of becoming better. It was not perfect. It was not finished. But it was something. And sometimes, Maya thought, something is enough. As the sun set over Riverside Academy, casting long shadows across the grounds, her grandmother had once walked with her head held high. Maya Richardson felt the weight of legacy not as a burden, but as a gift. She had honored it. She had added to it. And she was passing it on. The fight was not over. It never really is. But she had proven that ordinary people, frightened, hurting, imperfect people, could stand up to cruelty and win. Not always easily, not always cleanly, but with enough courage, enough support, and enough refusal to accept injustice as inevitable, they could win. And that, Maya thought, was the legacy worth leaving.